I've always wanted to try a rolled cake. I've never made one before, obviously. Hello, welcome to Moonbelly Makes. My name is Katrina and welcome to my kitchen. Today is part 2, the second installment of what I am lovingly calling Katrina's Great British Baking Project, otherwise known as Bake Along with Bake Off, also sometimes affectionately known as How Many Pounds of Sugar Are in That Recipe. This is my first attempt at one of the technical bakes. If you don't know what that means, you can head to my website. I have it linked down below. If you want details about the hows and whys of this project and all of the rules that I've set for myself, the TLDR version of that is that I love the show The Great British Bake Off and have been super inspired to try some of the bakes that the contestants make on the show. It's taken me a long time to gear up the courage, but the courage is here and I am doing it. There's a different theme for every episode, and this episode's theme is cake, so it's called Cake Week. And for the technical, the bakers had to make 12 chocolate mini rolls. I decided just to make 6 because I already have a whole apple cake in my fridge. And how much cake do we really need? Don't answer that. So these mini rolls are a chocolate sponge, a peppermint frosting filling, a chocolate coating on the outside, and then white chocolate drizzled on top. This is relatively simple in terms of the technical bakes, but wait, let me get my notes. The judge whose recipe it is imparts some knowledge, imparts some wisdom onto the contestants, and this is what Prue had to say about these chocolate mini rolls. Well, all I can say is it's a bit fiddly. Here's how I did. While the bakers on the show have a pared down version of the recipe, I am using the full version of Prue's actual recipe from the show's official website. I also watched Erin McDowell's fantastic rolls and roulades episode of Bake It Up a Notch on Food 52's YouTube channel for more insight on how to do a rolled cake like this properly. The cake is a sponge that has no chemical leavener, so all of the rise comes from air whipped into the egg whites. Eggs separate better when they are fridge cold and whip up better when they are room temp, so I separate them right away and let them sit while I get everything else started. Prue's recipe starts by making a cocoa paste. It calls for a tiny amount of melted butter, so I get that going next. I no longer melt butter in the microwave because it always explodes on me since I keep my extra butter in the freezer. I got the butter melting and then started weighing out my cocoa powder, vanilla, and boiling water. Then the butter went in. It should have been 15 grams, but I guess there was a lot more evaporation than I was expecting in the melting process. So I went ahead with the 12 grams that I could scrape out. I stirred the paste together and set it aside. The next step was to bring the yolks to the ribbon stage by beating them together with sugar. In the ribbon stage, the yolks almost triple in volume, they become noticeably paler in color, and the trail into the bowl looks like a ribbon piling on top of itself. I think it is one of the most beautiful and underrated transformations that happens in baking. Once I had ribbons, I added in the chocolate paste and mixed it until it looked like brownie batter. The chocolatey yolks went to the side, and it was time to start whipping the egg whites into meringue. When making meringue of any kind, you need a super clean bowl. I started mixing on low speed just until they got a bit bubbly, and then turned up the speed to medium. Once they started to get foamy on top, I started gradually tipping in some sugar I had weighed out off camera. Then I mixed the whites into the yolks in 4 additions. The first addition I mixed in really well to get the textures to meld together, which is called tempering. Then the next 3 additions I mixed in much more gently by folding the chocolatey mixture from the bottom of the bowl on top of the egg whites. After the last addition, I made sure to really scrape down to the very bottom of the bowl and kind of push apart any lumps of egg white that weren't mixed in yet. This step has to happen super gently so that you don't knock out too much air from the egg whites. Then I poured the batter into my very buttery quarter sheet pan
and popped it in the oven. While it baked, I did a very bake-off thing of staring into the oven and willing my cake to bake nicely. However,
I don't know why. It might be my oven, it might have been how I put the batter into the pan, but the cake is super uneven. Like one side is really thin and the other side is really thick. I think it's my oven, or maybe just like the earth that I'm on is just making it crooked. I don't know. I rotated the pan, but I think it was too late. I think it's already was too set by the time that I rotated it. But Erin said that when you roll it up while it's still warm, it should level it out. So hopefully that works for me. I'm nervous. While my lopsided cake bakes, let me tell you what's coming up. I made a landing station for the cake once it's done. So a piece of parchment paper, a little pot holder trivet, and then a little sifter with some powdered sugar in it. And as soon as the cake is done, I'm gonna dump it out, roll it up, and let it cool rolled up. While it's cooling, I will make the filling, which should be really easy. I'm softening some butter. This is a really bad way to soften butter, just like on a cutting board. It's just gonna melt everywhere. But I have it on the oven just because I keep my butter in the freezer, so it's like really hard, really frozen. It just requires me keeping an eye on it, which is fine because I'm also keeping an eye on the cake because I set my timer for 10 hours. I don't ever use the timer on my stove because I don't know how to use it. It's a kind of new stove. That's my excuse.
When the cake was just starting to pull away at the edges of the pan, I took it out of the oven and went to unmold it. Here's when things started to unravel. Even though I thoroughly buttered my pan, and even on the silicone mat, the cake stuck like crazy. I wanted to roll it while it was still warm, so I tried to work quickly. I used a tiny offset spatula to carve the cake off of the silicone. Then I dusted it with a bit of powdered sugar and rolled it up according to the recipe. Short end to the center, and then the other short end to the center as well. And then I let it cool completely while I made the frosting.
That was really annoying. You know what that means? It means there's scraps for me to taste. Very good.
I accidentally started whipping the butter with the whisk, and it was being super weird, so I switched to the paddle like I meant to use all along. Erin says the whisk is for adding air, and the paddle is for smoothing. I use this trick when I can't remember which attachment I should use. This frosting is an American-style buttercream, which is super easy and super sugary. It's just butter, powdered sugar, and flavoring. In this case, the flavoring is peppermint extract. Look how creamy and lovely that is. And it only took like 2 or 3 minutes to do. I set it aside and unrolled my cake, which was really just a bunch of crumbs at this point, so it was super tricky to spread out the frosting. I ended up using my fingers. I think with a thicker and better baked cake that wasn't already mangled from removing it from the pan, this step would have been a breeze. Then I rolled it back up, and of course it had stuck to my parchment paper on the other side, so I had to wriggle it loose using a fish spatula. I wrapped it back up and popped it in the freezer while I made the chocolate coating. This recipe has 3 types of chocolate. The dark and milk chocolates get melted together for the coating, and the white chocolate is used for drizzling on top. While the chocolate was melting, I cut apart the roll into 6 mini rolls, and yes, I used a ruler so they are as exact as I could make them. I put them back in the freezer and had a dance party with Pete / I became a human cat tree. Once the chocolates were melted together, I tried a few methods of coating the rolls. A small spoon ended up working the best, especially because my cake was literally falling apart. I used up every last bit of chocolate that I melted.
I'm having a pickle break. I feel like these are gonna be really sweet, and I just need to balance this out a little bit with a little spicy pickle. I am a Libra after all. These are so spicy. I can tell already I'm not gonna win Star Baker. for these mini rolls, but they're gonna taste good. I feel like I needed like double the amount of chocolate to really just pour over. I think also if my cake wasn't falling apart, it would have been a lot easier of a process, but oh well.
I decided to do a little bit more white chocolate than the recipe called for, so I got that melted and into a large Ziploc bag. I twisted the top and then cut off a very small amount of the corner of the bag and started drizzling. I should have stopped here, but I kept drizzling because I had melted the extra chocolate and realized I didn't want to waste it. And there they are. The white chocolate really covered up the lumpiness, but they are still a bit clunky. Definitely not refined. Another quick trip to the freezer to solidify the white chocolate, and it was time to see how successfully I spiraled the cake, and also if it tasted good. You can see how it's trying to spiral, especially on this side. Oh, there we go.
Cheers before it falls apart. This is tasty. It's not my favorite thing I've ever baked. It's really sweet. And it's really pepperminty. It just makes me think of peppermint bark. For the amount of work, for my money, I'd rather just have peppermint bark. But I'm really glad that I tried this. I've always wanted to try a rolled cake. I've never made one before. Obviously, did not go well. I don't know if it's just the 2 bakes that I've done so far or if it's just gonna be a theme through all of this, but these have been so sweet. And I tend to like desserts that have a little bit of savoriness to them. Wait, let me make sure I don't have chocolate on my face. All right, pretty good. What was I saying? I feel like if the filling maybe, just for my tastes, had some cream in it or some even like cream cheese or even some mascarpone, just something to kind of temper the sweetness and add a little bit of tang. I also noticed that this recipe doesn't have any salt in it, and I almost added some just into the cake batter to kind of round things out a little bit, and I think maybe, you know, that would be a simple thing to do to make this just fit my palate a little bit better. Still gonna eat them. They're really good. I don't know if I feel confident yet in roll cakes, but I did learn a ton. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed, maybe learned a little something from my mistakes. And if you have any tips for making rolled cakes like this, please let me know. I am all ears. I would love to hear your insights. Even though the cake totally fell apart, the chocolate didn't coat it properly, I still made something that's super delicious. So this again just goes to show that even though you might make some mistakes and it doesn't look totally perfect, it still can be something delicious and something that you can share. If you want more details, including the recipe that I used and also a link to Erin's video that helped me so much, would have been so much worse had I not studied her video. You can check those out in the description below. And also for even more information about this project, you can head to my website. Also housed on my website are a bunch of other projects, some of my own recipes, and then also there's a bunch of crafting and DIY stuff. So all sorts of different projects. You can also find me on Instagram to stay connected. Thank you again so much for watching. I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Can't eat it.